Pastor Stephen Bohr, he knew. 2 years ago, I published this video right here asking some very fair, very reasonable questions to Pastor Stephen about abortion inside his church, inside our church. He has no problem. Everyone can see that he has no problem going public and giving sermons and seminars and symposiums and loudly talking about the dangers of women's ordination. But he has been completely silent about his own church's support and involvement in killing children by abortion. Now check this out. Columbia Union visitor, January 1986. The New Jersey Conference recently welcomed who? Steve Bohr, who will serve as the Director of Youth Ministries and head the Department of North American Missions. May 1987, picture of Pastor Bohr as Director of Missions in New Jersey. This is important because the very next year, Ministry Magazine, July 1988, a Mr. Stephen Bohr, Missions Director for New Jersey Conference, writes a letter to the editor thanking them for publishing the article by Dr. Richard Fredericks, Less Than Human. For those who don't know, Dr. Fredericks was at the time one of the most outspoken, most well-known outspoken pro-life voices within the Adventist Church. Pastor Bohr said, "It's comforting to read such a clear, gutsy, and brilliant article on abortion, especially after reading so many wishy-washy, ambivalent, non-position rationalizations on this issue. If Seventh-day Adventists believe in the annihilation of the undesirables now, what makes us think that those against God's people at the end of time will not vote for the undesirable remnant of eschatology? Our ethical positions or non-positions now will mold our behavior in eschatology. I think we must take a clear position on the sanctity of all human life." Do you see that? Pastor Stephen Bohr knew. He knew the Adventist Church accepted abortion in 1970-71, but for over 15 years, leaders kept it a secret until the mid-1980s when protests at our hospitals and the Washington Post exposed this, forcing the church to address the issue. Articles were written both for and against abortion. At the time, Pastor Stephen had been watching what was happening. He had been reading these articles and, to his credit, accurately describes them as wishy-washy, ambivalent, non-position rationalizations. In other words, Pastor Stephen saw that the arguments for abortion were just a bunch of nonsense. After reading Frederick's article, he was really glad, so he responded, "The reason I am making this video is because of this paragraph, especially this sentence. Our ethical positions or non-positions now will mold our behavior when, in eschatology, over 30 years ago, way back in the 1980s, Pastor Stephen Bohr could discern that any acceptance of abortion would have a damaging effect on one's theology. Pastor Bohr had a clear enough mind to understand that any excuse or support or justification for killing children would undermine one's beliefs. He could see that this sin in particular would have far-reaching negative consequences. He saw this way back in 1988. The issue of abortion continued to get space in our publications until 4 years later in 1992, when the annual council approved continued official public support for the deliberate, premeditated killing of children. Pastor Stephen Bohr knew, he knew that such a witness would have disastrous effects and consequences, and yet amazingly, for almost 30 years, we have heard nothing from him. And when North Americans wanted to bring in women's ordination, this man is on it. Articles, videos, sermons, symposiums, constantly and very publicly, very loudly warning about the dangers of ordination. But the killing of an innocent child, though he knows the dangers, not a word. This man publicly attacks every argument for ordination, but on abortion, a total blackout. It's amazing. The reason why I am making this video is to give evidence that people knew. Do not for a moment believe that leaders in our church are ignorant. People have known about this for decades. They knew it was wrong. They knew it was not biblical. They knew it would undermine and ruin our witness. They have known this for decades and they remained silent. Here's a question for you. Why is it that people in our church get so energetic and zealous about ordination, so bold about spiritual formation, so fearless to attack evolution, unafraid to denounce Rome's attack on the Sabbath? All of these errors, they are on it. They are on it. They are all over these errors. But when our church supports the premeditated, violent torture and murder of little children, we hear nothing. Nothing. Why is that?